It's lap one. The two that we're interested in here, George Russell and Sergio Perez, the Mercedes and the Red Bull. Perez had a great drive in the sprint. He's charged back through. He's got himself into race contention in the Grand Prix with a gutsy drive in the sprint and some good moves. And he tries to keep aggressive on the first lap of this one as well. So as they come into the corner, Russell's ahead, Perez on the outside, and Checo sends it quite deep. Now, George Russell is committed on the brakes at this point. He's had Checo on the outside, who he's ahead of coming into the corner, and then Checo sends in a bit of a go around the outside here. Now, George on the inside, he manages to get the car stopped. He's right up on that apex curb completely. He's not even missed it by a smidgen, as we've seen in other cases. He's on there, and the apex curb just forces him to go slightly wide, and he tips Perez into a spin at that point then. And that's basically Perez's race done at this moment. And George Russell has also caused himself all manner of complications with a front wing damage, which will necessitate a change. But the stewards, in my mind, inexplicably gave Russell a penalty. And I think that's because of the outcome rather than the actual infringement. I think that's because you've got one driver spinning off backwards in the gravel, and you've got George Russell on the inside who manages to carry on at this stage. The same wasn't said, to be fair, the day before, but I think that must be the reasoning of the stewards at this point, because the outcome looks like it's obviously Russell's fault. But I think that the actual incident, I think it's, again, in the realm of a racing incident for me. Russell on the inside as he comes in. And you can see, gets onto the curb. The curb just causes him a slight moment of understeer towards Perez. There's the contact. But again, look how much space that Checo has on the outside. He can use a load more space to try and get this move done. He's trying to pinch across towards the inside of George. And then there's the contact. So for me, this is kind of a similar incident to Albon. And it's a racing incident where both have kind of run into each other here. Maybe Russell's just had a momentary understeer as he's come off the curb, but also I do think Perez has plenty of space. And look at the way he's coming in here. He's not giving Russell a lot on the way in at the apex. As they're coming through, there's the contact, and you can see loads of space on the outside for Perez if he wanted to use it, but he's still turning in hard, trying to just pinch the Mercedes on the apex. It's a risky move, and it hasn't paid off. So for me, this one, racing incident, and I think the stewards called it wrong. Probably didn't change the outcome of George Russell's race because he managed to get back to fourth and lost a lot of time with the front wing change anyway.
Nothing I could do, he just turned into me.
Yeah, you saw it clear now with George. I gave him enough room.
Did it, copy Checo.
But we have seen other incidents at this corner. We saw it a couple of years ago with a Mercedes tipping a Red Bull into a spin. And this was Hamilton and Albon in 2020, the first round of the season. Albon on the new tyres at the end after a safety car, goes for a move around the outside. And this one, Hamilton did get a penalty for. But this one I think is slightly different because Hamilton touches Albon a lot later around the corner. And Albon, as they have contact about there, Albon is quite far out, pretty much on the curb. So he's round the outside of the corner. And Hamilton has clearly washed a lot more in towards Albon. And Albon doesn't have a lot more space to use, to be honest, in this one. So Hamilton got the penalty. I don't think that was an unfair decision at the time. Here we go on board with Lewis. He comes in, and then he's just washing wide. Now, Albon goes pretty much all the way out to the curb, and Lewis is just struggling to stop the car and hits him. So whilst Perez had more space to go, here, I don't think Albon did have more space, and that was why he got the penalty. And it's similar to the other incident that we saw in the Grand Prix on Sunday. This one, on the face of it, looks extremely similar to the Russell-Perez one on the first lap, and the outcome was the same, a 5-second penalty for Pierre Gasly for tipping Sebastian Vettel into a spin. Here they come into turn 4, and bam, the same contact, left front of the car on the inside, tags the right rear of the car on the outside, and whilst Perez was spinning on lap 1, this was Vettel spinning and his race derailed. But we can see there's difference here. As Gasly's coming into the corner here, Vettel's already up alongside him. Pierre's coming in, and he's just not turning the car very much at all now. He's on full lock stop, he's understeering a lot, and he is heading right towards the outside of the track. And there's contact here, and Vettel is on the Albon line. He's giving a lot more space around the outside. I don't think there's much more Seb could do to try and make this move fairly. I do think on this occasion, Pierre Gasly's gone in a little bit hot and he's drifted wide. And unlike Russell, he's not managed to turn the car, and he has more space with which to do that. I think Perez was cramping the inside of Russell a lot more than Vettel is with Gasly. And we can see that a little bit more with a side-by-side comparison. Gasly, I think, cannot defend his 5-second penalty here. I think Russell's was harsh. The incident seems the same, but here's the nuance. You can see already the difference. Vettel's ahead of Gasly at this point, whereas the two on the first lap are side-by-side. Russell gets right up to the apex, whereas Gasly's already understeering at this moment. And you can see where the cars are now pointing. Russell clearly has done a lot more turning on the opening lap. The cars are already touching, and you can see George is barely off the apex, whereas Pierre Gasly's gone in deeper. He's barely turned the car much more. And whilst Russell is pointing it that way, Gasly is pointing more that way, clearly understeering towards Vettel, who is also much further to the outside of the corner. So Vettel's giving more space, and as they touch, Perez has loads more to his outside, whereas Vettel is going to be running right out onto that curb immediately, and it's just Gasly's trajectory that's taken him out there. So for me, that explains the position of, I think Russell's unlucky, I think it's a racing incident, and I think Pierre Gasly deserved his 5-second penalty. So I'm surprised that the stewards gave Russell the one, and I'm sure there's going to be more talks about it in the next race in France.
He has to give up that corner. I had the nose ahead. What is wrong with these people?
So that was my take on some of those midfield incidents in the Grand Prix, but there's loads of action throughout a sprint weekend, including the sprint start, including more bad luck for Fernando Alonso and the Ferrari Red Bull dynamic. Check it out on F1 TV.